Nyaje chembor don hingmi jong zoner monum chembor nga ja ta bakar tar ngam san do shermo do tomba tiji jan la ki jom sar ne jan ro zer ngi jang gam zan ja or tiji shan la yela man ji me panzo ja la soran da gon ji to ban po ro shinji lo.
For the ultimate benefit of all sentient beings, please give rise to the supreme and unsurpassed bodhicitta, the enlightened mind. Next, we will delve into a detailed discussion of the profound and ancient practice associated with the Buddha Shakyamuni. This particular method involves a deep and intricate form of visualization, which is entirely centered upon and relies extensively on the revered figure of Shakyamuni Buddha himself, guiding practitioners through a spiritual journey. It involves the dedicated practice of calm abiding, a form of meditative concentration, as well as profound insight meditation. What is precisely called insight in this context is actually a deep and transformative realization. It is a profound method of meditation and spiritual realization, offering deep insights. Today, we will thoroughly discuss the profound and insightful practice of the revered Buddha Shakyamuni. Tomorrow, we will also continue to explore the extensive and beneficial practice of the compassionate Buddha Shakyamuni. On Saturday, there will be a special and highly anticipated transmission of the deeply meaningful Letter to a Friend, a significant and timeless text. After that, we will together mindfully perform a profound sacred refuge ceremony with complete heartfelt devotion and gratitude. During this significant and wonderfully auspicious special moment now graciously before us, I will transmit to you some precious, invaluable, authentic, compassionate Mahayana Buddhist scriptural and treatise transmissions that are inherently very naturally meritorious, deeply, truly blessed with wisdom, and possess incredibly immense, pure, transformative spiritual benefit. Some of you are truly devoted, sincere, faithful Buddhists, and it may not have been particularly very easy for you to come here to listen to the teachings this very precious, special, meaningful time. When the class is over a little while, I will be here, and also for our fellow practitioners from within our Larung Gar, there might be a few additional words I want to say. Now, let's continue to discuss this profound and essential practice. Yesterday, we extensively talked about the theoretical meditation methods as taught and expounded by Shakyamuni Buddha. Following that foundational understanding, we covered the actual practical and applicable meditation methods specifically designed for diligent and dedicated practice. In addition, we discussed the practice of calm abiding here. Practicing calm abiding means letting the mind become tranquil, which is the meaning of meditative concentration. At the same time, we thoroughly discussed the 5 distinct types of experiences. We meticulously explained these 5 unique types of experiences through the use of 5 carefully chosen analogies. This is very important. During our regular practice, we often experience these kinds of unique sensations. So today we'll continue our discussion. We'll introduce the earlier part about special insight. Let me give you a literal introduction to it. Afterwards, you can read the rest on your own. That should be fine. Because if we want to finish within these 4 days, explaining everything literally will take quite some time. So after you have accomplished calm abiding as mentioned earlier, you should continue to practice the yoga of special insight. Earlier we talked about calm abiding. Now we will discuss special insight. Many of us practitioners diligently study calm abiding and practice meditation. Everyone is willing to do. But when it comes to the practice of special insight, perhaps we are a bit lacking. Today I will explain this very clearly here. I sincerely hope everyone will also reflect upon it seriously. First, when we are truly supposed to practice calm abiding, we use the Buddha statue once again as the primary object of our focused attention. When we engage in the practice of contemplating calm abiding, just as I explicitly mentioned during our discussion yesterday, we utilize the sacred and revered statue of Shakyamuni Buddha and take it as the object of focus again, and then visualize it with single-pointed concentration. Eventually, when there is no Buddha statue in front of you, you can still keep it ever present in your mind, let's say in your heart. That's even better. Freely bring to mind the vivid image of the Buddha's form within your heart. When the time is truly right, at first, we carefully place the Buddha statue directly in front of us and diligently continue meditating upon it. Then, after reaching a certain significant point, you can simply visualize it clearly within your own mind. There's absolutely no longer any need to always physically face the Buddha statue. At this particular stage, what exactly can we appropriately call this profound state? At this very point in time, it is truly called achieving a deep sense of calm abiding, shamatha. Even though there is no physical Buddha statue present at this moment, because in your own mind, the profound image of meditative equipoise has already formed, either within your heart or deep within your mind. The image of meditative concentration is present in your mind, because at that time, even if you close your eyes, the image of the Buddha appears extremely vivid and clear, as if visualized right in front of you. So this is called naturally and clearly appearing right before you. There are several different stages to this. In the very beginning, the form of the Tathagata appears before your consciousness. Here it says before the sense consciousness, but this should be changed to before the consciousness. The form of the Tathagata appears before your consciousness, just like an image appearing in a mirror. It can manifest clearly and vividly. You can easily visualize it in your mind, and then, as you progress further along the path, it can actually appear before your sense consciousness. In fact, this particular process is rather complex and intricate. At first, we might look at a Buddha statue. Eventually, you won't need the physical statue anymore. Even without the actual statue, you can visualize it very clearly in your mind's eye. And not only does it appear very clearly before your consciousness, but also before your very own sense consciousness. It appears very clearly and distinctly before your eye faculty. This is indeed the second stage. Moreover, in front of others, it is also clearly perceptible. They can also clearly see the image that has appeared before your sense consciousness. And in front of other people, you can also see the Buddha image before your own sense consciousness. This is something that many practitioners, if you look at the early Nyingma tradition, in the practical instructions of many great masters and accomplished teachers, there are also such teachings. The first is what is called the object of consciousness. The second is what is called the object of the sense consciousness. The third is called the object of awareness. Some call it the object of awareness, while others call it the object of contact. It seems that, in fact, in Tibetan it is specifically written as contact. In English as well, it is accurately translated as contact. But I wonder if awareness might be a better translation. Because for truly realized beings, the Buddha image that appears before others can also be clearly and distinctly seen by them. After first clearly and precisely visualizing the Buddha image, one then proceeds to deeper superior meditation. The specifics will be explained below. First, you set your intention in your mind this way. In your mind, you visualize a truly radiant Buddha image with all the perfect and auspicious marks. In fact, it appears due to the habitual tendencies within your own mind. Many of us may have deep faith in the Buddha, but do not understand meditation, nor do we understand the emptiness of the Buddha's true nature. This is something that many practitioners, both in Han Buddhism and Tibetan Buddhism, tend to lack. Everyone is very good at bowing to the Buddha and reciting the Buddha's name, but you do not realize that the Buddha is also empty in nature, and that you yourself are also empty in nature, and that your own mind is also truly empty in its nature itself. The Buddha image, in fact, this particular point is very important to understand. We absolutely cannot regard the Buddha as something truly and inherently existent. We cannot treat the Buddha image as something truly existent either. Although what appears before our sense consciousness, whether it is the magnificent statue of Shakyamuni Buddha or the sacred Buddha image depicted in a beautiful thangka, may seem to truly exist and be present, in reality its true nature is the same as the true nature of our mind, emptiness. This is very important. Today, those of us present and listening to this class should all reflect on this. Many of our deeply held traditional beliefs from the past have been challenged. We believe that the Buddha truly exists. Some even think that when I leave this world and enter the Bardo state, a truly existent Buddha will come to save me, or that the Western Pure Land is a truly existent pure realm, and that there is a truly existent Buddha there. If we think this way, it means we have not truly mastered Buddhism's view that all is like a dream or an illusion. So today, in this class, we are talking about superior insight. What is meant by superior insight is that whether we contemplate a sacred Buddha image or our very own mind, we are engaging in a profound spiritual reflection. In the ultimate sense, it is free from all extremes. In the conventional sense, it is like a dream or an illusion, and so on. It is composed of 8 kinds of illusions. This is a very crucial practice. If we do not understand this, it is indeed very difficult to achieve realization in practice. This is the core doctrine of Buddhism. So here it clearly says the Buddha image we meditate upon is actually a habitual tendency of our very own mind, an appearance manifested by the mind's conditioning power. Such a Buddha image When we truly and ultimately indeed examine it, really, neither comes from anywhere nor goes anywhere. There is no coming or going. This Buddha image of ours is without coming or going, neither arising nor ceasing, neither increasing nor decreasing. If we examine further and more skillfully, what can we understand? We can see that such a Buddha image is actually devoid of any real existence. Whether internally or externally, it is ultimately unattainable. Like empty space, it is completely unattainable. All of these aspects entirely depend upon the workings of our mind, and through our diligent, long-term practice, consistent habituation, and so on, they manifest due to such dependent origination. As for the Buddha image, it actually appears due to our wholesome dependent origination. Then, as for the appearances of hell and various sufferings, they manifest due to unwholesome dependent origination. Who is it that truly and profoundly understands this intricate dependent origination, this fundamental principle? It is Shakyamuni Buddha. When we discuss the praise of dependent origination, everyone should develop a firm conviction. The one and only thing about the Buddha that distinguishes him from many great figures in the world is what? It is that he has already taught dependent origination and emptiness. And dependent origination and emptiness should be understood as a very clear explanation of the true nature of all things, whether it is phenomena in conventional terms or the emptiness in the ultimate sense. If we truly understand this law of the dependent origination of all causes and conditions, then the profound teachings of Buddhism, we will truly and clearly understand them in a profound and comprehensive manner. This crucial point for us Buddhists who are present here should also be fully realized and internalized through our own diligent study, careful contemplation, and dedicated practice. So in the end, we do not rely on the wisdom of others, but can fully and completely understand it through the sheer strength of our own personal conviction. Oh, so this is how everything is. The nature of the mind is also like this. The fundamental nature of all things is also exactly like this. At this point, you no longer need to rely on others to guide or carefully instruct you. You completely realize it through your own inner strength. This is also very truly important. It manifests due to the power of long-term practice or habituation and other dependent conditions. If you further and more deeply examine the true source of all appearances, the very origin and source of everything that exists, and observe it with great care and meticulous attention, what else can you possibly discover? You will inevitably find that both internally and externally, there is absolutely nowhere for the mind to truly hide or conceal itself. If you continue to observe, just now, everything originated from your own mind. And then when you observe this mind again, you find that it is itself free from any basis or support. Since that's the case, these images that appear from a mind without essence, since the mind itself does not truly exist, how could the images that are manifested by the human mind possibly be considered truly and genuinely real? The Buddha statue we see, indeed, in front of us, who are still profoundly influenced by the ingrained habits of ignorance, it appears extremely clear, undeniably real, and remarkably solid. It seems to be an utterly unshakable and truly enduring phenomenon. But when I use wisdom to observe it again, first of all phenomena are created by the mind. Then, when I observe my own mind again, just as it is described in the His Holiness Manjushri Great Perfection, when I repeatedly examine my own mind, ultimately, in the ultimate sense, it is like empty space. And in the conventional sense, it is truly like a dream or an illusion. This is just like when we first begin to understand the profound prajna teachings, or the essential teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha. Therefore, these appearances do not possess even the slightest inherent nature. Now, as we analyze further and more deeply, I don't know about everyone here, but in the past, many of us would often make offerings to the Buddha, or bow to the Buddha, or recite the Buddha's name, right? But have we ever thought about this? The Shakyamuni Buddha you visualize, the Amitabha Buddha or Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva you contemplate, their true nature is actually unattainable, because all appearances are created by the mind, and our own mind is also illusory. Ultimately, the true nature that is free from the four extremes and the eight elaborations, perhaps many of us, have been diligently studying Buddhism for 10, 20, or even 30 years, and just now I observed that some people's hair has already turned quite white. Some individuals say, I've been studying for well over 10 or 20 years. Many people claim they've been practicing Buddhism for a long time, but during these years of Buddhist study, in these long 10 to 20 years, apart from visualizing a truly existent Buddha, have you ever contemplated that the Buddha is also empty in nature? that the Buddha is also ultimately unattainable. If you haven't understood this principle, then true liberation from samsara will be quite difficult for us. This point is something everyone should. And these words of instruction in the texts, in fact, reading them once is not enough to fully digest them. You should familiarize yourself with them repeatedly when we give lectures. After all, you could say this truly serves as a prominent and leading example for everyone to follow. But if you want to actually put it into practical application yourself, then you need to read it again. For example, if you attend a training course, the subject you need to study, at the time, the teacher might just give you some symbolic guidance. But afterwards, you will need to diligently look up other supplementary materials, and then you can take the manual and thoroughly, slowly, continue to digest it. Keep refining your understanding further and further. This is something required for learning any kind of knowledge. In the same way, the so-called true manifestation of the Tathagata in the world actually refers to the pure virtuous roots of sentient beings and the great compassionate aspiration of the Tathagata. When these causes and conditions come together, it's just like our face appearing clearly in a clean, polished mirror. The Buddha also manifests truthfully and authentically before the sentient beings of this world. This is also important. Some of us may wonder, if the Buddha is fake, how could that be possible? Didn't the Buddha appear in India more than 2,500 years ago, become a prince, and then willingly renounce the throne? Later, he turned the unsurpassed Dharma wheel of profound teachings. Are these things fake? That's not. This is due to the Buddha's pure and great compassionate aspiration and also the pure virtuous roots and aspirations of sentient beings. When these two causes and conditions are present, the Buddha exists, sentient beings exist. But if we speak in the ultimate sense, then whether it's the Tathagata's 5 aggregates, the 18 elements, the 12 sense bases, and so on, in fact, none of these truly exist either. Not even the slightest bit exists. It is something that ordinary, ignorant beings cannot fathom at all. They are the wisdom body of the equality of the Dharma realm. We sentient beings in this degenerate age, regarding the Buddha's wisdom body, it is extremely difficult to fathom. We might think to ourselves, Shakyamuni Buddha is such and such. I've met many people in academia, especially in Western academic circles as well. Sometimes I really wish they would all come together to study the root verses of the Middle Way. Otherwise, it's just far too much. They only read some historical books, or they only look at some documents that have been translated into English, and then they directly make judgments about the profound and deep intent of Shakyamuni Buddha. This is a significant issue. Personally, I do think it is quite difficult, especially if one doesn't have any real faith in practice or a solid foundation in this particular area, and only relies on, for example, looking up a few words in dictionaries or reading some historical materials. I still really and truly admire their professionalism in some important respects. I've had the opportunity to visit some of their offices, and indeed it's quite remarkable. They have all kinds of books piled up like mountains. You'll see them meticulously flipping through a section here for a while, making a precise mark. Then they'll flip through another part over there and make another mark here. Some of it might be because the specific materials they extensively research are so incredibly abundant. Maybe they want to present it this way. Indeed, this particular aspect is truly very admirable indeed. But sometimes, without the proper influence of specialized professional knowledge, it might not be quite that particularly easy actually. So for ordinary people in general, truly, the Dharmakaya of the Tathagata, the Rupakaya of the Tathagata, all the intricate and profound transformations of the Tathagata's Rupakaya, and indeed all the deeply profound and secret meanings contained within them, perhaps are truly quite difficult to fully fathom and exceptionally hard to thoroughly analyze. This is what is stated in the Sutra of the Ornament of Wisdom Manifestation. What is called the true Tathagata is actually the image of endless virtuous qualities. There is neither true suchness nor Buddha in this, in the ultimate sense. It is merely an image appearing before worldly beings. The Sutra of the Samadhi of the present, Tathagata, abiding in the world, also says the same thing. Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are established by the pure minds of sentient beings like us. And the very nature of this mind is also inherently pure and truly luminous. This kind of unblemished purity, in other words, if the nature is indeed pure, it will not be mixed together with sentient beings. If one understands this principle, then that is truly attaining the ultimate state of Bodhi, enlightenment. Therefore, here we must understand this clearly and precisely. The true form of the Tathagata is ultimately unattainable. If one seeks me through form or looks for me through sound, that person is treading a deviant path and cannot see the Tathagata. Some people might be quite confused, even when there's absolutely no need to be. They've already been feeling confused for quite a considerable while. Yesterday we said that the Tathagata truly exists, but now we're saying that to see the Tathagata through a mere physical form is to follow a truly deviant path. Actually, there's no real need for everyone to worry or to be afraid. Why is that the case? These manifestations of the Tathagata are just like the images we see earlier, like a mirage. Later on, we will use the 8 metaphors of illusion to explain this principle. So the manifestations of the Tathagata that we see are actually not the true reality. All Buddhas and Bodhisattvas arise from the mind, and the nature of the mind is luminous. Therefore, this is different from our ordinary afflictions and karmic obstacles, or in other words, the deluded appearances that manifest. They cannot possibly be mixed together as one. By relying on this kind of wisdom to observe, one can understand the principle of appearances. And by understanding these principles, what will you realize? Just like all the manifestations of the Tathagata, the Buddha, all dharmas encompassed by the aggregates and all bases, are all manifested like illusions, arising from the coming together of various causes and conditions. This point is perceived by many sentient beings. As we mentioned, the Tathagata appears like a dream. But not only does the Tathagata appear like a dream, all phenomena encompassed by the aggregates, elements, and sense bases, all the myriad things and phenomena, in fact, they also appear due to the aggregation of causes and conditions. On this point, sentient beings have different perceptions. Sentient beings also feel that whether it is the aggregates, elements, and sense bases of themselves, or everything encompassed by the aggregates, elements, and sense bases of other sentient beings, they believe these things exist. But in reality, all exist like dreams illusions. Such dharmas only manifest by relying on the gathering of their respective causes and conditions. If we observe further, not even the slightest trace of any inherent nature whatsoever can be found in any phenomenon. When it comes to the profound teachings of Madhyamaka and the emptiness of prajna, if we meticulously use the analytical methods of Tibetan Buddhism to thoroughly investigate and examine these concepts, we can truly develop firm conviction in the teachings of Madhyamaka. This includes our valued fellow practitioners at Larunga. I often hear them engaging in discussions during their oral presentation exams, and it is truly evident that they possess a profound and unwavering conviction in the philosophical principles of Madhyamaka. Actually, Madhyamaka can be examined and analyzed through investigation, and in the end, one can truly gain some understanding. But it is indeed somewhat difficult for us to attain true realization. On this point, I also hope that I observe that many of the Buddhists present here are quite young. In terms of their profound wisdom and understanding, if you listen to and contemplate the teachings of Madhyamaka, there shouldn't be much of a problem. But what is rather quite regrettable indeed is that when we used to offer the 5 great treatises courses, very few people actually signed up for them at all, which was truly a pity. Everyone just practiced the preliminaries or recited Amitabha Buddha. Reciting Amitabha Buddha has boundless merit, which is very good. But many young people, including numerous college students, are facing various challenges. They do not choose courses on the 5 great treatises. They only choose to recite Amitabha Buddha and aspire for rebirth in the Pure Land. Back when His Holiness was still alive, sometimes when we divided into classes, it was the same situation. Many young people in particular chose to diligently study the profound Pure Land teachings, while many elderly individuals, conversely, prepared to deeply study Buddhist logic and debate. So in a rather interesting way, things were a bit reversed. When we didn't have many people in the past, for example, it was also often the case when dividing into classes. Some people didn't have a single tooth left, while others had just 1 tooth. These people were especially eager to debate, because when they debated, they had the wonderful chance to proudly show off their single prominent tooth in front of all the others present. And then there were some young people who started reciting Amitabha Buddha 1,000,000 times and would often carry a traditional prayer wheel, as they were deeply unwilling to openly display their inherently dignified appearance in front of other people. This is just like an ethereal, magical, illusory manifestation, as if in a vivid, lucid, transcendent dream. In reality, all phenomena are truly completely without coming or going, naturally without birth or ultimate cessation. But ordinary people and foolish individuals who are deeply attached and never truly examine things, they believe that all these phenomena of arising and ceasing truly and undeniably exist. In our real lives, many people are deeply attached to worldly matters. They firmly believe in the actual existence of the arising and ceasing of all things. They think today something was born and today something truly ended. When a cherished family member dies, they feel an especially profound sense of pain and deep heartbreak. This profound sorrow is primarily because we have not fully understood the profound teachings of emptiness. If we truly and deeply understand the teachings of emptiness, even though birth and death appear to manifest so vividly before us, when a person is born, everyone is extremely joyful and offers congratulations. Then, when a person dies, everyone is deeply saddened. But in the true nature of reality, such birth and death are actually, on the one hand, a natural law, and on the other hand, in their true and inherent nature, they are neither born nor do they cease to exist. As Buddhists, it is profoundly important that we should fully understand this fundamental principle, and I think it is very necessary and indeed crucial to do so. If we understand this principle, then when all kinds of things happen in our daily lives, we will not, because of these compelling and significant reasons, become disappointed or lose our profound confidence. Even when you eventually and finally leave this earthly world, you absolutely won't feel that way at all. So in our current and present world, we must continue to strive. What is really necessary? It is very necessary and indeed crucial for us to have a profound understanding of fundamental teachings such as the middle way, the impermanence teachings, or the teachings on emptiness. This is very important. Sometimes when we carefully observe and truly look at this dynamic world around us, it really does change extremely quickly and at an astonishing pace. In a relatively short period of time, whether it's the global economy or personal wealth, many aspects are on the rise. But in a very short period of time, they can also decline. Actually, this is also a very good thing indeed. In our daily lives, we also inevitably experience both significant ups and downs, rising and falling from time to time. This kind of situation is actually very good. We shouldn't think, oh, things haven't been going well for me lately, why is it like this? Actually, perhaps there is truly no real need to think in that particular way. Ordinary people always tend to believe that absolutely everything is completely real and utterly unchanging. It's like someone with an eye disease who tries every possible way to remove the hairs they see floating in the air. Since beginningless time, people have been obscured by the cataract of ignorance. They have absolutely no idea about the true nature of all things. For many of us, it's truly a pity if we haven't studied and reflected on these teachings. If we have done some study and contemplation, we will have a better understanding of the true nature of all phenomena. And those great masters who have truly realized the ultimate reality do not deny the appearances of all phenomena. Those who have some understanding and realization of the middle way and the teachings on emptiness, these people never try to refute appearances. They see appearances as a good thing, whether it's the appearance of afflictions or appearances that arise during your practice. They consider this to be very beneficial. Didn't the Venerable Tilopa also profoundly say, appearances themselves do not truly bind you, only your deep attachment can truly bind you. So, Naropa, you must completely cut through the powerful bondage of all attachment. His profound instructions to Naropa were also very much like this. What have they already deeply realized? That in the very moment of appearance, all phenomena, without exception, have no true existence whatsoever. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. When people realize emptiness, they often think everything disappears, nothing remains at all. But that's not what it means. The very nature of these phenomena as they appear is actually emptiness. This is very important. Many practitioners, especially those who truly think they've fully realized emptiness, they think that all the appearances in our current real life will ultimately all disappear, leaving only emptiness. They believe this is realizing emptiness, but that's not actually the case. If we don't understand principles, if we haven't studied and reflected on them, your old idea of realizing emptiness is actually quite different from what is being explained here in this context. Therefore, those who have realized should understand this point. All phenomena are inherently unborn, and this unborn nature is also a part of emptiness. Just as it is stated in the sutra requested by Heatless, all that arises from conditions does not truly arise. Such arising is without inherent nature. If something arises on conditions, then it is unarisen. It is without inherent nature. Buddha taught that all phenomena from causes are empty. This is very important indeed. As long as we are still in this world, anything arising from causes and conditions is empty. It's said by Buddha. Prajnaparamita Sutra also said, all phenomena are like dreams and illusions, as well as nirvana. If there were a dharma that transcends nirvana, that too would be an illusion, a dream. We've quoted this times, I won't elaborate. The king of Samadhi Sutra says the same, like dream, illusion, mirage, Gandharva city. The nature of a flickering night lamp is inherently empty. All phenomena should be viewed in this exact profound way. Seeing things as like a dream, like an illusion, like a mirage is actually very important. In our daily real-life situations, we really need to consider this. No matter what happens, you shouldn't cling to it as if it were absolutely real. This is what is meant by being like a dream or an illusion. It's very good if you can naturally develop this kind of feeling. The renowned fundamental wisdom of the middle way also says the very exact same thing clearly here. Like an illusion, like a profound, vivid dream, like a magical, mystical city of Gandharvas. The so-called arising, abiding, and ceasing, their essential true nature, is also exactly like this.
Armanam Chevin Gimajin, Chizzy Tronker Chevin, the Devin Kiedan, Devin Danan Jipersum.
We've thoroughly discussed this particular scriptural proof on numerous occasions before, and personally, I genuinely feel that it has consistently proven to be very rewarding and profoundly important. So, when the Buddha's form appears in our minds, it fundamentally has no inherent existence. We should understand that all things and phenomena also have no inherent existence. I too am without self-nature. What is called my self-nature is actually the self-nature of all the Tathagatas. In other words, the self-nature of the Tathagata is the self-nature of all phenomena. This principle is also something relatively new. My self-nature is in fact the self-nature of the Tathagata. The self-nature of the Tathagata is the self-nature of all phenomena. So what is this self-nature? It is emptiness. Ultimately, only when we reach this state is it a truly excellent insight. If tranquility and insight are not combined, our practice cannot succeed. When Master Tsongkhapa wrote the Lamrim Chenmo, the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, at the beginning, including preliminary practices and earlier sections, he found the writing process especially smooth. Then, when he got to the section on tranquility, it was still manageable. But when he began writing about insight, Manjushri Bodhisattva appeared to him in person and said, "You are writing too profoundly. It might be that no sentient beings will be able to comprehend it." Later, his Yidam reminded him there would be people who could understand and encouraged him to continue writing. When people teach the Lamrim Chenmo, when they get to the later section on insight, however, they still tend to cover it rather briefly in their discussions. Here we have Mifam Rinpoche, who uses a very good and effective approach, one that is both simple and clear. In today's class, basically, we are focusing on the insight section of the Lamrim Chenmo, summarizing it in the form of key instructions. This is something that I think we should fully and truly understand. If there is only insight without tranquility, one still cannot realize the true meaning of the Tathagata. Having insight without tranquility or tranquility without insight also cannot lead to full realization. Therefore, the union of tranquility and insight is indeed very important. As was just quoted from the Ornament of Clear Realization Sutra, a profound text, the phenomena of constant non-arising is precisely the Tathagata. In fact, all phenomena are actually the same as the Tathagata, but ordinary beings who cling to appearances and are ignorant become attached to things that do not truly exist in the world, mistaking them for real. Today, I have here with me many scriptural citations in Tibetan that I used to be able to effortlessly recite from memory. Recently, however, the scriptural citations on my Tibetan Weibo account have unfortunately not been consistently updated. For a while, I didn't have time to read some Tibetan books. It seems that the scriptural citations I memorized were basically all used up in last year's Weibo posts. Now, sometimes I feel a bit lacking. A couple of days ago, I went out to have fun for Children's Day on June 1st, and so there was a break in between. But today, seeing some familiar old friends here, I think my Tibetan Weibo can be maintained for a few more days after a while. Maybe this year is a bit difficult for me. A lot of scriptural citations have already been used up. Now, when looking for new ones, if there's only a single citation, it doesn't really feel meaningful. Most of the ones that really resonate with me, I already used up a total of 360 diamonds during the past year. Now, I really can't dig up any more precious diamonds. It's quite hard to find new ones at this point. Let's carefully observe how these existing diamonds will fare in the future. There are indeed a few valuable diamonds here. Right now, I am truly lacking new ones. These are still the ones that should be used frequently. This scriptural citation is very famous. It's often quoted in the Wisdom chapter and by Mifam Rinpoche because the appearances that these ordinary people cling to don't have any of real existence in the world at all. It's like the rabbit horns or turtle hair, things that don't exist, yet they stubbornly cling to them as if they exist. They take them to be truly existent. In fact, everyone here is like this. Indeed, we are all ordinary beings who cling to appearances. As ordinary beings who cling to appearances, the self that doesn't exist at all in the world, we take it as if it truly exists. We take impure things as if they are completely pure. Things that are originally empty in nature, we believe are not empty. We cling to impermanent things as if they are permanent. We are the kind of deluded beings who see permanence, happiness, self, and purity where there is none. That is exactly us here. Maybe among you there are many bodhisattvas. Many bodhisattvas might be laughing at me, so I don't dare to say more. Among you there should be, as the saying goes, among three people there must be my teacher. So perhaps not everyone here is an ordinary being, but the majority of us ordinary beings regard things that do not exist in the world as truly existent and cling to them. We take them as truly existent and enjoy them as such. The Compendium Sutra, this is from the verses on the Compendium of Prajnaparamita. It seems to be in the first chapter, but I'm not sure about this scriptural reference, because our translation of the verses on the Compendium of Prajnaparamita was done later, in 2002, just as my true nature is sentient beings, and the true nature of sentient beings is all phenomena. Their true nature, in fact, is that neither birth nor non-birth is conceived at all. This is the supreme activity of the perfection of wisdom. The root verses on the middle way also explains it in this way. The Tathagata has already transcended conceptual elaborations, but people remain entangled in conceptual elaborations. Conceptual elaborations obscure the wisdom eye. This is what it means not to see the Tathagata. In fact, all the qualities of the Tathagata are the same as the qualities of the world. The Tathagata and the world are without inherent nature. On the surface, the Tathagata seems to possess the nature of nirvana, a pure nature, but in reality, from the perspective of true nature, as stated in the root verses on the middle way, Tathagata is unborn and undying. Everything in the world is also unborn and undying. From the standpoint of ultimate reality, there is no difference. This is also how it is explained in our Vajrayana tradition and in the Madhyamaka school. This includes even the things in our world that seem especially terrifying, the so-called afflictions and suffering. For those individuals who can truly realize the profound nature of all phenomena, for them, there is absolutely nothing to be afraid of. The various afflictions and suffering that might seem especially frightening in the Hinayana, but in the Mahayana, and especially in the Vajrayana, when one truly recognizes their true nature, they are actually nothing more than the way our mind clings to things. You may think something is clean, while someone else may think it is unclean. But clean and unclean are the same. It's like black clouds and white clouds. Both equally and effectively block the intense sunlight. Good thoughts and bad thoughts are also no different in their true inherent nature. So good and evil, whether in Chan Buddhism or in Dzogchen, are completely equal, and this is the reason why. It's just that we ordinary beings who are attached to appearances have not yet realized this. In the ultimate reality, all phenomena are completely free from the intricate web of conceptual fabrications, such as arising and non-arising, and are originally equal and pure always. In the Wisdom Ocean Inquiry Sutra, it is also stated in this way: this is the undefiled, pure, virtuous, and luminous nature. Just like the all-encompassing space, it itself is also unarisen. It neither comes, nor is born, nor abides, nor is extinguished. This is the pure and unwavering Dharma of the Tathagata's mudra. This is the most ultimate Dharma gate. The Avatamsaka Sutra also contains similar statements. Subtle and difficult to realize the path of the Tathagata. Extremely subtle, not to mention ordinary beings. Even bodhisattvas of the 10th bhumi find it very difficult to realize. Such is the path of the Tathagata. If we truly examine its teachings, ultimately it is also free from thought and conceptualization and extremely hard to perceive. Its nature is quiescent without arising or ceasing. Only when one fully comprehends and deeply understands such profound principles can one truly grasp and realize the fundamental truths mentioned above. Its inherent and fundamental nature is emptiness and tranquility, completely free from all suffering. This liberation mind stream is just like the ultimate state of nirvana. It is boundless and centerless, beyond anything that words can express. In all three times, liberation has already been attained. These fundamental principles are very much like an empty space, vast and all-encompassing. For those who have not studied or contemplated the Madhyamaka teachings or the emptiness of prajna, it might seem like they have no idea what is being talked about. What is all this about empty space and liberation? But for those who have some realization of Madhyamaka or Vajrayana, especially in many cases, he was just crying and now he's laughing. Truly, this is impermanence. Actually, each and every one of us has come through the journey of life in this very same way, experiencing its many facets. Therefore, we should all feel a deep sense of gratitude toward our beloved mothers. Just yesterday, it marked the solemn 3rd anniversary of my dear mother's passing. At that poignant time, I specifically asked everyone present to devoutly recite the sacred Avalokiteshvara mantra. Today's the same. When reciting the aspiration of Samantabhadra, it's not just for my mother, but also for the lifelong members in our association, many of whom have also sadly left this world, and not only at Larunga and Bodhi Association, but also all those we know and don't know. All sentient beings who have left this world at that time, we can also sincerely and profoundly dedicate the immense merit by chanting aspiration of Samantabhadra to them. This might also be a very good and truly beneficial kind of dedication for the deceased, for our beloved parents, and indeed for all those who have passed on from this earthly existence. Sometimes, in many different aspects of my daily life, I often find myself missing my beloved parents. This feeling frequently arises in various situations. For example, when I go out during the warm summer months and happen to see certain beautiful flowers blooming, these are precisely the kinds of things my parents used to talk about often and with great fondness. Or when eating certain foods. For instance, just a couple of days ago when I went to the school, on the way on a patch of lush green grass, I noticed something quite beautiful. There were some flowers I really liked as a child. At that time, my mother would tell me, this flower is called this, that flower is called that. When I saw those flowers again, those memories came back to me. And then, at lunchtime today, someone very kindly gave me a rather unique kind of Tibetan fried dough twist, which was skillfully made from noodles. When I held it in my hand, I thought, oh, my mother used to really like these too. So generally, when our parents are still alive, we might not be truly and fully aware of all of these important things. But once our parents have left this world, so many numerous intricate little details in our everyday daily life naturally trigger heartfelt memories and intense longing for our parents. But in a particular certain sense, there's really completely nothing we can possibly do about it. So sometimes I also often recall too, for example, when that child was crying just now. When we were little, we also cried like that in our mother's arms, causing our very dear mothers a lot of trouble and much difficulty. But when we were little, our mothers were probably also very happy in their hearts. So generally speaking, everyone grows up in the arms of their parents. And in fact, that entire process is indeed very long and quite involved. It's also important for our parents, holding significant meaning for them. As for me, it has already been a period of 3 years now since my mother passed away. I truly think I've gradually come to terms with it deep within my heart, finding a measure of acceptance. Also, on Weibo, I personally checked it this very early morning, and the original Weibo post from when she first passed away, now the total number of views has already quite impressively reached well over approximately 70 million. Sometimes it seems like. I don't know if those who read it have recited the Avalokiteshvara heart mantra or not. If they have, then the merit and virtue accumulated are quite significant. For all sentient beings who have been our mothers, helping them to attain happiness, it's very necessary for all our virtuous roots to be united together. At that time, we can dedicate the merit using the aspiration prayer of Samantabhadra. This was the life of the little angel just now, which also brought us many different and unique feelings. Next, we will talk about Rahula, who in praise of Prajnaparamita says, wisdom beyond words and thought reaches the other shore, the nature of space, unborn. The profound domain of individually realized wisdom and the heartfelt homage to the mother of all the Buddhas of the 3 times. In Tibetan area, when we traditionally recite the Sacred Heart Sutra, we usually begin with this significant verse. This verse is actually very important. It discusses the emptiness of prajna. Bodhisattva Nagarjuna spoke thus. These are the 5 characteristics of ultimate truth. This is also very important. Self-knowing, not dependent on others. This is one characteristic. It is fully realized through one's very own personal means. It does not rely on others in any way. Its nature is quiescent, free from conceptual elaboration. That makes 3. Then, it is not of another nature, and it is free from dualistic discrimination. Altogether, there are 5 characteristics. This is the true nature of reality. Bodhisattva Nagarjuna has already truly explained the ultimate truth. When we attain enlightenment, once we understand these principles, we are enlightened. Why do we cite these scriptural proofs? Actually, even if we have not yet attained enlightenment, if we frequently read these scriptural proofs, I think many people will not be far from enlightenment. They will be quite close. Those who enjoy reading and familiarizing themselves with these teachings will naturally gain such qualities in their mind streams. Whether it's Madhyamaka or Buddhism in general, these principles are gradually accumulated over time. This is very important, to accumulate them bit by bit. Some people themselves are not very wealthy, but day by day it gradually changes over time. They save their wages and accumulate a lot of money, and in the end, they still have a certain amount of wealth. In the very same way, perhaps our karmic conditions from previous lives are not particularly favorable indeed. And we are born seemingly not inclined toward Madhyamaka or the understanding of emptiness, completely understanding everything. It's not like that. But through one's own efforts and long-term diligence, one can gradually accumulate this wisdom as well. Here says, in this way, for yogis and practitioners whose object of meditation is true nature, by discerning the truth free from words and conceptual elaborations, first they realize the samadhi that all phenomena are like dreams and illusions. And then they focus on the Buddha's form, which is like a dream or illusion. First, we understand all phenomena this way, and then, regarding the Buddha's form, we not become attached to it. We regard it as dreamlike and illusory, for it is like a dream or illusion. However, even within this dreamlike and illusory nature, it is necessary to contemplate images of the Buddha, to listen to the Buddha's true teachings, and to practice and study in this way. All kinds of actions are dreamlike and illusory. Everything is like a dream or illusion. This is truly very important indeed, in fact, in all of our spiritual practice. Truly, didn't I mention this the other day? This year, when we truly wanted to teach Vajrayana in particular, everyone also wanted to discuss resting in illusion. We asked the Khenpos and Khenmos to teach resting in illusion. In the end, many people here, specifically the people of our shared lineage, are not just Buddhists in name only, but truly embody the principles and truly have some inner realization. This is very important. If you don't have this inner quality and only get a certificate of refuge on the surface. Of course, this outward form is still very important and holds significant meaning and inherent value. But if your mind stream is filled with greed, anger, and ignorance, with jealousy and arrogance, and when interacting with others you are especially rude and simplistic, and your behavior is quite uncivilized, then for such a Buddhist community, there isn't much difference between studying Buddhism and not studying it. A true Buddhist is peaceful, with very gentle conduct, and has a heart that is truly full of gratitude. If you have inner realization, an understanding of emptiness, a view that sees everything as dreamlike and illusory, and you are thoroughly familiar with all the teachings, then such a Buddhist community is truly meaningful. Therefore, we still need to fully understand these fundamental principles. Next, we should abide in the inexpressible, entering meditative absorption in the equality and individually realized object of emptiness. What can be attained in this way? The corresponding forbearance of the Dharma. If you continue to practice in this way, in the not too distant future, you will undoubtedly attain the path of seeing. Of course, the path of seeing may seem rather distant for us. However, it is still very much important for us to indeed take into account if we first practice calm abiding using the image of the Buddha, and then contemplate in the manner of superior insight, and then ultimately the state not far from the noble path can also manifest. All of the above principles are explained in the form of Pith instructions. Currently, there are meditative absorptions such as the thus gone one abiding in the world, as well as single-pointed absorptions and so on. These are practical methods of actual practice. There may be a bit more to discuss below, but for the most part, you may need to read the following sections on your own. Here, I will briefly talk about a few things. First of all, we have already thoroughly discussed the theoretical Buddha and the various Buddhas earlier. Shakyamuni Buddha is absolutely no different from the other Buddhas in essence and in practice. In yesterday's class, I explained the methods of practicing calm abiding and meditative concentration using Pith instructions. And today, I will thoroughly explain the profound practice of superior insight, utilizing Pith instructions. In any case, I would like to offer a few thoughtful suggestions to everyone here today. These are gentle suggestions, not something I am in any way forcing upon you. First and foremost, I sincerely hope that no matter when or where you find yourselves, whether in your daily lives or during moments of deep contemplation, you always have a statue or an image of the Shakyamuni Buddha. Although it is a form or an appearance, it is still a representation. It is still indeed truly very important for Buddhists. Of course, sometimes I also encourage and ask everyone to practice the sadhana of Tara, Guru Padmasambhava, Shakyamuni Buddha, and so on. But in any case, every devout Buddhist practitioner should always have a truly blessed and sacred object to rely upon for spiritual guidance and comfort. If your circumstances allow, you can have a larger Buddha statue or even a very small one. Even if it's just on your computer or in a photo, as long as you have such a Buddha image yourself. In the past, many of Atisha's Kadampa lineage disciples, no matter what, always had a small Buddha statue, a stupa, and scriptures. These three things were things they never parted with. So we should do the same. Of course, this depends on your own situation. If you like Guru Rinpoche, you can carry an image of Guru Rinpoche. Or if you like Manjushri, or Avalokiteshvara, or Shakyamuni Buddha, that's all fine. It doesn't have to be all of them. I observe that many Buddhists here, perhaps they are a little bit greedy, as everyone carries a large bag on their back. And when it's time for blessings, they have one on this side and another on that side. One bag on their back, and still holding something in their hands. If the situation is like that, then it's still it's generally better to keep things quite simple. What we're advocating now is not to have too many things, especially when you buy too many blessed items. Now, when I go out, I don't buy anything at all. If I do buy something, when I come back, I can't give it away to everyone. If I do indeed give it away, perhaps the person who ultimately receives it will be genuinely happy, but everyone else who doesn't get one will undoubtedly feel offended. So giving things away, in this particular scenario, is actually the absolute worst. Maybe even the person who receives it won't be happy either. This one's much too big, that one's far too small, this one's simply not good. So actually, it's probably better not to give anything at all. If you really don't give anything at all, truly, things remain relatively pure and uncomplicated. So usually when going out, even from the very beginning in the past, when we went to the United States, we would typically buy pens and paper at the school, and it was quite troublesome on the way there. Then after coming back here, if you give something to this person but not to that one, it doesn't work. That becomes troublesome. As for your blessed items, maybe you can give some to your Dharma friends. Otherwise, if one person takes so many blessed items, people might wonder what they're doing with them, but that's fine too. As for blessed items, in reality, your attachment is to things like Buddha statues, scriptures, and prayer beads. You are attached to these things. At least you have faith in this aspect. It's not like you don't acknowledge anything at all. Compared to people like that, there is still a difference. So from the ultimate point of view, although these are just forms, these kinds of forms are still necessary, at least for now. In the Pith instructions of Guru Padmasambhava, it is sometimes said, including things like checking auspicious dates or reading omens, although these are just forms for now, these forms can be beneficial or harmful to us. As long as our attachment to appearances has not been eradicated, they can be either very beneficial or indeed harmful. So the first piece of advice I want to give today is from now on, for any Buddhist associated with me, whether you are a dear friend, a devoted disciple, or a spiritual Dharma companion, for all of you, my sincere suggestion is, no matter what, you should always keep a sacred Buddha image close to your body. This is very important. In the past, we used to say, whenever we taught any Dharma, we felt it was very important. Sometimes when I go out myself, I do tend to carry quite a lot of things with me. I bring Shakyamuni Buddha, Guru Padmasambhava, and Manjushri. It feels like everything is equally important. I've noticed Dharma friends have on their necks Manjushri Bodhisattva, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, Guru Padmasambhava, Kalachakra, and He Vajra, starting from this very point and extending all the way around. If we truly understand the profound principle that all Buddhas are of one essential nature, then perhaps it's not even really necessary to do this at all, in fact. Just like what was clearly mentioned yesterday in the Maitreya's Great Lion's Roar Sutra, indeed the discriminating thoughts we have when we truly wish to see the Tathagata are actually themselves Buddha. These very discriminating thoughts are Buddha itself. The images we see with our eyes, these are Buddha. If we have reached such a state, perhaps we don't need to carry these things either. But for those individuals who have not yet attained ultimate spiritual realization, as devoted Buddhists, at the very least, we should certainly have some kind of blessed and sacred object to constantly remind ourselves over the very long term of our spiritual journey. This particular point is quite profoundly important. This is something I just wanted to mention briefly to you. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is that whether in the Han region or in Tibetan area, it seems that whether it's during festivals or Dharma assemblies, there are relatively few Dharma assemblies dedicated to Shakyamuni Buddha. Originally, we are beings of the Saha world who have a karmic connection with Shakyamuni Buddha in this fortunate aeon. We are sentient beings of the Saha world, but we might hold many. Of course, in the ultimate sense, they are all one. We might hold Dharma assemblies for Avalokiteshvara, for the revered Vajrasattva, for the enlightened Amitabha, and so on for many other significant figures. There are more of these kinds of assemblies, but as for Shakyamuni Buddha, reciting the name of Shakyamuni Buddha, doing this over the long term is relatively rare. For example, in Theravada Buddhism in Southeast Asia, they often, whenever there are significant Buddhist festivals, they are all important festivals related to the revered Shakyamuni Buddha. So in the coming year, at the very least, in various different situations, according to our own specific circumstances, we should recite the name of Shakyamuni Buddha, display vivid images of Shakyamuni Buddha, and also hold events related to this. For example, reciting Om Mani Mani Ma Mani Suha, or Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Or we can use the slightly longer and more descriptive version in Tibetan, such as offering prostrating to the Tathagata, the perfectly enlightened one, which is a longer Buddha name and more complete. This is quite important. Therefore, as Buddhists, we may feel that towards our fundamental teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha, in our Saha world, the world of strife, who is the Buddha that truly guides and protects us? It is our fundamental teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Therefore, we feel a profound and heartfelt sense of deep gratitude towards him. Moreover, by relying on his benevolent and compassionate blessings, many significant and profound realizations and essential truths will naturally and effortlessly arise for us. As for my own unwavering and steadfast faith in the enlightened being, Shakyamuni Buddha, I personally consider it to be unwavering. Because in life, no matter what I encounter, I definitely will not waver. This is precisely why we must profoundly, greatly value Shakyamuni Buddha. As devoted, sincere Buddhists, we must pay close attention and always remember this crucial understanding. This is the second very significant aspect. The third aspect is that, as devoted Buddhists, if we just only recite the Buddha's name and only purely practice Buddhism and totally ignore society, I'm afraid that really won't work effectively. Nowadays, this current era has already become different from any previous historical era. If every Buddhist only recites the Buddha's name and sacred mantras and only cares about themselves without caring about society, then our Buddhist community may quite ultimately not be truly particularly successful in practice. Like the resilient Jewish people, and similarly like the ancient Indians, they possess a strong spirit of solidarity. As long as someone is truly one of their own, they will always do their utmost to provide assistance and help them. But for some overseas communities, including the Chinese people, they basically do not help each other. For example, among the Indian communities, if an Indian person joins a company, they will often extend a helping hand and provide support to their fellow countrymen. He will find ways to share many of his resources with others, and gradually more and more people from India will join. It's the same situation with people from Israel. They generally have a kind of deep acceptance toward all those around them. When they themselves gain resources, they immediately want to share them. But as Buddhists, as I previously mentioned some time ago, our current modern society is indeed I'm not really sure how to put it properly, actually. Society nowadays is incredibly quite complicated, with so many very uncertain factors. Family is extremely uncertain. Wealth is also uncertain too. Even appearance is uncertain. So many things are uncertain. In such a world, we Buddhists, even though we talk about things being like a dream or an illusion, sometimes many things are actually quite real and impactful. For example, when significant changes happen within your family dynamics, or when your job circumstances undergo a transformation, or when your entire personal mindset and fundamental perspective changes, just saying things are like a dream or an illusion isn't enough. In such situations, having an altruistic mind is very important. Another is that we need to recognize our true mind, to know our own mind. This is very important. If we can even slightly understand the true nature of all things, no matter what we encounter in life, you should be able to face it with very truly immense strength and resilience. If we have an altruistic mind, there are indeed many different methods we can use. I think as Buddhists, as I mentioned some time ago, in our current modern society, I am in my outward appearance a monastic, a person devoted to a religious life and to care about society, especially things like education and employment. These may not really be my responsibility. For someone who is truly practicing in seclusion, perhaps these things are not my concern. But in our society today, as Buddhists, we should pay attention to education, and we truly care about the many, many unemployed people around us and their well-being. The many people who have experienced heartbreak and the many individuals who have unfortunately lost their confidence, especially now at this critical moment. Some Buddhists have even greater merit and blessings and have more abundant resources in various aspects. So we must help those around us, both Buddhists and non-Buddhists alike. I have indeed seen some Buddhists, and I am truly grateful to them as well. For example, there is a Buddhist who owns a business and a factory. In this way, many people around him who previously had no salary or source of income have all had their problems completely solved. In fact, this is truly a profoundly great and compassionate act of a bodhisattva. If every Buddhist among us with sincere hearts and unwavering commitment had this kind of mindset and shared their own resources, it would be of great help to society. It doesn't matter in any way whether they have faith or not, as long as we can provide assistance to others, because our society is indeed an era of increasing wealth inequality. It's getting more and more severe. In the future, the poor may become even poorer, to the point where they can't even make a basic living, struggling to survive. While the increasingly wealthy become more and more affluent, accumulating vast fortunes, in the end, they won't even truly know how to fully enjoy all that immense wealth they have amassed. In this significant and crucial era, we should give rise to a profound sense of bodhicitta. Some of us say, oh, there are so many poor people, so many who are suffering, there are so many sick people, I just can't help them all. But actually, that's not quite the case. Even though there are still many people truly suffering, if we all try to help, even if I can help just one person, that's enough. I've always had this very firm and unwavering resolve, a deep conviction. For example, if I help 2 college students, or help a sick person, or help someone who is poor and can't find a job, if I can do these few things in my life, I would be completely satisfied. If I can genuinely support a deserving college student for a full 3 years and truly help them successfully complete their academic studies and achieve their educational goals, maybe they appreciate it, maybe they don't. Maybe they know about me, maybe they don't. But no matter what, from the perspective of my own personal wealth, it's truly very meaningful. In terms of my actions, including, for example, if I effectively use Buddhist teachings to guide someone who has perhaps lost their way, if I can gently point them toward the right and proper path, that is also very meaningful. So each and every one of us should definitely have our very own personal platform, and at the same time, pay attention to the people around us. Just do as much as you are able. Indeed, among the Buddhists here, some are truly compassionate, whether it's establishing Dharma centers or compassionately helping many devoted Buddhists and non-Buddhists around them. And at the same time, within their personal abilities, they keep always helping others very continuously too. Of course, when we help others, you need to be mentally prepared. It's really not that easy at all. If you don't see anyone at all, life is much more orderly and peaceful at that particular time. But in the process of helping others, you will encounter many, many unpleasant things. But this is to be expected. Even when the Buddha was practicing on the path in his previous lives, he encountered so many obstacles and demons. So if we face some difficulties in our own practice, it is really quite truly and indeed worthwhile. Therefore, the practice of our esteemed teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha, is also very important and truly significant for each of us. However, its ultimate core benefit, just now at noon, a lay practitioner spoke to me. He said that the ultimate core benefit of spiritual practice, he believes, is summed up in the 2 words, benefiting others. I was very happy at that moment, and indeed it is just like that. What is the most essential core of Mahayana Buddhism? It is precisely those 2 words, benefiting others. If you understand the meaning of benefiting others, then among us some have the ability and some do not. But even if you lack the ability, as long as you give rise to this intention, the power of such a mind is also extremely great. Next, regarding the essential daily contemplations on the Buddha's teachings, you can simply take a thorough look at it yourselves. Let me briefly introduce the main idea to everyone. This is the Sakyamuni Buddha Sadhana. It is a profound visualization practice that we usually recite and engage in. At the very beginning, there is the important step of taking refuge and generating bodhicitta, which is essential, as well as the profound essential 4 immeasurables practice, and then the sacred, complete, detailed 7-limb offering. After carefully explaining the 7-limb offering content thoroughly, one should devoutly recite the Buddha's name and powerful sacred mantras right now. At this time, vividly visualize the Tathagata's immense, boundless merits, truly indeed. When discussing the profound and immeasurable merits of the Tathagata, the Buddha, at that moment emits a vast and boundless light, illuminating all directions, benefiting countless sentient beings. Actually, these sacred lights should be specifically mentioned in the 30th volume of the Maharatnakuta Sutra. There are lights such as the divine pure cloud manifesting light, pure eye light, and pure ear light indeed. The detailed reason for each light is clearly explained. For example, if you devotedly offer lamps, you obtain the pure eye light, certainly. Then if you offer exquisite fragrance or beautiful sounds to the Buddha, in the end you will ultimately obtain the pure ear light and the pure nose light and so forth. Therefore, it is highly advisable for you to take a comprehensive look at the 30th volume of the Maharatnakuta Sutra, where each light is explained. Of course, there are even more kinds of lights. There are many lights that benefit sentient beings. Therefore, here, Mipham Rinpoche, because in our liturgy it is mentioned that light is emitted to benefit sentient beings, has provided some explanations about the Tathagata's light. This is discussed quite extensively in the Maharatnakuta Sutra. There are also some passages in the Avatamsaka Sutra and other texts, including the profound Bodhisattva Pitaka Sutra, which also extensively discusses various matters related to the nature and manifestation of light. After we diligently practice such profound shamatha and vipassana yoga, finally, we make offerings of mandala, recite praises, prayers, dedications, and aspirations. These are also very important. Afterwards, there is absolutely no need for a dismissal or a closing ritual. What exactly is a dismissal ritual? It refers to when we previously visualize Shakyamuni Buddha, and after you finish your practice in some other cases, for example, in the liturgies for Medicine Buddha and so on, the Yidam and all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are sent back to their pure lands. But here, that is not necessary. There is also a type of closing sequence or order. For example, in our preliminary practices, at the end, all the surrounding deities dissolve into the main deity. The main deity dissolves into the seed syllable. The seed syllable emits light and dissolves into your own body. For this kind of dissolution, it is not necessary. Why is that? Because our teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha, is the essence of all Buddhas of the 3 times. He truly neither comes nor goes, ever actually indeed. At any given time, as long as you have genuine faith and carefully properly visualize, he can appear right instantly. So, with this kind of visualization method, it's not like the practices that are commonly found in other generation and completion stage sadhanas. Mipham Rinpoche also clearly explained this profound principle. Then he said, if you really can't manage to properly visualize as described earlier, you can instead contemplate the important Four Seals teachings: impermanence and suffering, emptiness and selflessness. This principle is also profound and holds significant depth. Finally, he explained to us within this comprehensive discourse, including the profound teachings of the Sublime Sutra of the 4 Trainings. I verified this information within the extensive collection of scriptures known as the Chinese Tripitaka, where it is meticulously documented and preserved, the Mahayana Sutra of the 4 Dharmas, because when I was translating this at the time, there was no internet, so translating was quite difficult. But in the Mahayana Sutra of the 4 Dharmas, it talks about many dream phenomena. It discusses the 4 kinds of dharmas, and indeed, all 4 are explicitly mentioned. Basically, it's exactly the same. There's only one particular place that's a little bit different. At the very end, there's a small, intriguing note that I have carefully translated. It's specifically called the Zaxiao bird, which gracefully circles around itself. It is said at the end, when talking the 4 distinct types of dreams that are considered causes, similar to the profound attainment of Buddhahood. Here, in the Tibetan version, it clearly says there is a special kind of bird that circles around itself while actually dreaming. In the English version, it's also the same bird exactly. But in the Chinese version, it says that many people are circling around oneself. So in this particular translation, there's a slight difference here. It's either the Zaxiao bird or a group of people circling around oneself. There's a little bit of a difference here. As for the rest of the content, when you have some time, take a look at the Mahayana Sutra of 4 Dharmas. The meaning here is that in the end, through practicing the Dharma ultimately, and practicing in accordance with our teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha, we will also experience many auspicious signs in our dreams. So what do these auspicious signs indicate? For example, what auspicious and positive signs appear when eliminating afflictions, and what significant signs appear when subduing vast hordes of demons, and so on and so forth. These concepts have already been explained in earlier discussions. Following this, within this context, and specifically including in the revered Liberation Sutra, there are also several descriptions of dreams that possess the power to purify negative karma and cleanse one's spiritual impurities. Finally, in the Maharatnakuta Sutra, there is a chapter on dreams. In this chapter on symbolic dreams, many valuable things are also comprehensively explained, such as the certain kinds of transformative dreams that usually appear after truly purifying previous negative karma. Sometimes, perhaps I don't have many dreams of other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, but I do have more dreams of the Gurus. Including just last night, I also had some dreams of His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche. Some of these dreams I can remember quite clearly and distinctly, even now, while others I don't remember very clearly or distinctly. But in any case, dreams are also perhaps a significant and profound sign of one's own inner confidence and self-assurance, reflecting a deeper sense of belief in oneself. However, I generally don't get attached to them. Even if I have good dreams, I don't get attached. And if I have bad dreams, I don't get attached either. But when I do have bad dreams, I often get sick. This is truly and undeniably a fact. When we carefully look at the profound chapter on dreams in the extensive Maharatnakuta Sutra, as well as in the significant 6 bardos, there are also many detailed and insightful instructions on precisely how to observe and interpret dreams. But within these, you will also find that some of the dreams in our lives also indicate purity or impurity, as well as their true nature. Especially if you frequently dream of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, or your kind guru at calm night. This also really shows your own deep faith, certainly, if in your dreams at still night, when they are generally filled with desire, anger, and ignorance, including some other things. Because some people, when they have bad relationships with others, often have such dreams. Some people often have vivid nightmares when they argue with their family members. This is also a clear manifestation of the mind's inner confusion. In any case, when diligently practicing the sacred ritual of Shakyamuni Buddha, many auspicious signs may also appear, as well as many truly auspicious and wonderful dreams. This is also something we truly need to understand deeply in our daily practice. So, in today's significant ritual, it is clearly mentioned that in the Maharatnakuta Sutra, the chapter on dreams, and various other important scriptures and treatises, the principles explained there should also be understood. Some of the principles mentioned earlier, it would be best if you could also take a look at them yourselves.
Bandharangara Padmasada Bandharangara Padmasada